What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I wanted to throw my hat into the arena on the Spider-Man 2 discussion. Thought we should maybe make some spicier videos today, the weekend. Want to talk about PlayStation first party versus third party. So a couple really spicy Twitter topics, at least, or X topics that I think could make for some good content, and honestly a more nuanced kind of conversation, discussion, because you can't really get that, I'd say, from Twitter or X. So, all right. What I really want to talk about is this back and forth nature, and specifically this video here, Spider-Man 2, okay? Spider-Man 2 has had the ride of its life, and what you oftentimes see is extreme polar opposites. Now, one thing I guess you should probably say to start this thing off, right, is, well, that's the internet. The internet is built off of either having the highest praise for something or the worst, the worst critiques of it, or, like the game is really bad. And that does make sense. Like when you think of the internet, when you think of how YouTube works, when you think about how algorithms work, and people have pointed this out, it's not popular, literally, like algorithmically, it is not popular to say this game was fine. When you say this is the most fine game ever created, you're trying to say that just maybe even to make it pop a little bit more, because by saying a game is average, IGN's favorite score being a 7, right? When a game is like that, there's not much you can do with it. And I do want to say, from a content creation point of view, I guess I understand that. And there's a reason why people take these angles. There's console warrior reasons and I do think that's a very, very big part with Spider-Man 2 that we'll talk about, as this video goes on. But I just kind of wanted to throw that in, early. It is a popular thing to make all games like this. Starfield, we can do this for Xbox games. You can do it for PlayStation games. Nintendo kind of is like outside that zone, right? They, I don't know, they just kind of mind their own business quietly and dominate, honestly, just tear the competition apart in their own unique way. But you could do this with Starfield, and people did do this with Starfield, right? That it's just a terrible, garbage game, or that it's the second coming of Christ. It depends on who you look at and I guess what day or what week you do it. And Spider-Man 2 has had the same thing. Now, look, again, being a PlayStation exclusive that's going to have a target on its back leading into its release, there was a lot of positivity. I think overwhelmingly, there was probably, again, a push of maybe even over, love for this game. And, again, a couple of reasons and a couple more things to say. You can love this game. You can not like this game. You can hate it. You can think it's fine. I'm not saying you specifically. And I'm not saying like the people that were giving this game massive praise. I'm sure there are genuinely people out there. Say like Evan Falarca, right? Friend of the channel. Great guy. I know he loves this game. He's not BSing anybody about it. He's not putting on an act. He genuinely believes that. And that's great. People should actually genuinely believe things, right? Again, most times it's not really like that. I think it did that as a wave, though, right? I think there was a lot of love for Spider-Man 2. The game comes out, and, when anything comes out, there's going to be that initial kind of feel to it. And certain things maybe are going to be popular at that moment, and they're not going to be popular down the line. And remember, let me just throw this in too, like I like this game a lot. I guess this is coming from a person who does think this is a very good game. I think in a lot of ways this is better than Spider-Man 1. In some way, I think maybe the story is a little bit of a step back in terms of the rushed feel to it towards the end. But I think in a lot of ways, and I've said this before, I can't really go backwards, and you could probably say that for a lot of games, and it's probably true for a lot of games, and yet people, retrospectives and stuff, you still do it anyway. But the combat is better now than it was. The traversal in the city and the physics mechanics, it's a better game in a lot of ways than the first game, and you would be playing an inferior product to go backwards, right? In some ways, not always, but in some. So, just to throw that out there, I'm actually a fan of it. But I would say it did turn. Like, it did turn pretty quickly. You had the first couple weeks of really like a honeymoon phase, and like I said, it does happen with most games. Most games, most media, most things in general, it happens and you have an opinion on it right away. And it's only amplified because of the internet, right? The internet does not help this. But this, I believe, is just like a psychological thing. Something comes out, something happens, you have an initial thought, and then once you get to sit on it and contemplate it and think about it and just let it rest for a while and come back to it, you oftentimes, your opinion's not necessarily going to massively change, but you're going to have a slightly different, take on it than you did that, say, first day. Through life, anything in life, you're going to have that. And so the internet is really the worst catalyst in the world for that, because the internet just amplifies it. So you have the people that make it out to be, oh, well, they're giving it too much praise, they must be fanboys, and some of them I'm sure are. Some people are legitimate fanboys that don't actually, think for themselves. But then there's also some haters that also don't think for themselves. They just say whatever is popular on their side, as well. Again, the console warrior thing certainly doesn't help this game. I don't know. Honestly, again, where I'm at, I think this is a really, really good game that I think in part has had too much love, but it's my opinion. That's how I feel about it. I think the people that are saying it's like the greatest thing ever, I don't think that's correct. That's my opinion. And the people saying, it's complete garbage, I also don't agree with that opinion. And I don't know. There's not, like I said, it's hard. I will say it's hard on Twitter, on X, to have like thorough discussions because everything has to come across strong. If you criticize the game, you almost have to go at, or people at least do, they go at it from like the worst person. Like they go hard. They go very hard, probably harder than the game deserves. Depends, I guess, on the person. Depends on how, powerful, I guess, you feel on something. I don't know. I've seen stuff where it's just when you're criticizing it, do you have to go to like the full-on extreme? Maybe you do for social media purposes. Maybe you have to liken it to the worst things out there and then make your point. Maybe that has to be done. Just like you can't say, well, most of the game is good. Like it's a really good or even great game, or, whatever adjective you want to use. But, there's a few things I have problems with. Well, that doesn't really fly. That's not popular online, right? And that's the thing, even with Twitter specifically, with Elon and the takeover, not to get too much into that, but the algorithm and the way that people tweet, even, I do believe, is different now than it was, say, a year ago. It's robotic, more robotic, I would say. It has less personality, but it kind of emphasizes, I would say, the most dramatic or most extreme kind of takes. You see the people that are popular, the people that get the likes and retweets, they make statements. They talk about it being the greatest superhero game or the greatest PlayStation game or the game of the year, or this thing is as bad as X other terrible game. This is in the same category as Redfall and Forspoken and Gollum, and Gollum is a totally different category than those first two, but that's what you get. That's what happens online. So a lot of it is just the internet doing internet things, but it has been weird. Like Spider-Man, it has been louder. Spider-Man has been emphasized more than what we've seen with other games. Not every game. Again, I do believe we are still in the middle of this with Starfield, and we're in the middle of it for Spider-Man. Console exclusive games always have this, and it's what I've said even leading into these games. I'm sorry for the people that rely on, say, Metacritic user scores, which I would never do. I would not recommend that to anybody on planet Earth, but I'm sure some people still do it, and I feel bad because you can never do that. I'd say more specifically with console, exclusive games. Could you ever get a real opinion on The Last of Us Part 2 based off its Metacritic score? Spider-Man, Starfield, Halo, literally any exclusive released in the last 10, 12 years as social media has gotten bigger and bigger, right? It's terrible. It's awful because it's literally either the games get 10s, it stretches to Metacritic. It stretches to all these things. It either gets a 10 out of 10 or it gets a 0, right? It's not just review bombing. Review bombing can actually work in reverse where they're fake high scores as well, and that happens time and time and time again as well. So, I don't know. It's been interesting. It hasn't been unexpected. I think it's been very loud. I think the Game Awards probably, not on purpose, I think the Game Awards fed into that, right? Because of all the losses. It was nominated, 6 or 7 times, and it lost all of them. That doesn't, and we literally said this, I said this, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't even mean anything to Insomniac unless they make it mean something. Unless they were tying a bonus to it, or if they were going to give themselves an office party, or they wanted to pat each other on the back in a line one at a time. If that's what they were going to do, well then yeah, they're disappointed. But if they don't care and they care about making fans happy and selling the game and making profit, or whatever the reason was why they made the game, right? It achieved actually a very good amount. So just to throw that in too, right? The Game Awards, not saying it should have won. I actually think Spider-Man should have lost most of those categories it was in. I think it should have won at least a couple. But the other ones I do think was beaten out fair and square. But it doesn't help. It doesn't help the narrative that, oh, overrated. It was overrated at launch because, look, it lost all these awards. It absolutely doesn't mean that because it's literally a panel of gaming journalist elites that nobody really likes. We all talk bad about them here, and yet when they don't give your favorite game an award, you put meaning into that. That's our fault for doing that. We shouldn't be doing that. I don't do it. Other people do. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.